March 2026, Waikato, New Zealand. Before dawn, police vehicles converge on addresses across the region in the largest coordinated raid the district has seen in years. 42 warrants, executed in phases over months. By the time it's over, 24 people are under arrest, aged between 22 and 49. What makes this operation different from a normal gang bust isn't the drugs, though there's plenty. 2.5 kilograms of methamphetamine, 500 grams of cocaine, and 134 kilograms of pseudoephedrine intercepted at the border. It's who's standing next to who in the arrest files. Patched members of the Comanchero Bikie Club, an Australian import. Patched members of the Mongols Bikie Club, another Australian import, and patched members of the Mongrel Mob, New Zealand's oldest and largest homegrown gang, a group that spent decades as a bitter rival to outside influence. These three groups weren't supposed to be in business together. For most of New Zealand's gang history, they weren't. This is the story of how that changed and how a joint police operation named Texas finally proved it. Australia's Comancheros are considered one of the most violent outlaw motorcycle clubs in the country. By the mid-2010s, Australia had begun deporting thousands of New Zealand-born men under Section 501 of its Migration Act, men who'd often grown up entirely in Australia and had almost no ties left to the country they were being sent back to. Among them were senior, patched Comancheros. For a couple of years, police in New Zealand watched and waited, certain a formal chapter was inevitable once enough of these men landed. That certainty had a name attached to it: Pasilika Naufahu, a former sergeant-at-arms for the Comancheros in Sydney, deported to New Zealand in 2016. Investigators running a covert operation codenamed Nova had no doubt Naufahu's presence alone would eventually mean a new chapter. It happened in February 2018. Photos surfaced on Instagram showing Naufahu and 5 others in matching Comanchero New Zealand shirts. The caption read, "All done and sworn in. Welcome aboard to my brothers in New Zealand. Another Comanchero chapter opened up. We are growing stronger and stronger. Fuck Peter Dutton." Which was a direct jab at the Australian minister whose deportation policy had, in the club's telling, only made them bigger. The timing made it even more pointed. The post went up just days after Mick Harvey, the Comancheros' former national president in Australia, was shot dead in a Sydney gym car park. New Zealand police weren't just watching a new gang show up. They were watching an organization that had just lost its most senior figure to gang violence back home, arriving with something to prove. Other Australian bikie clubs, the Rebels and the Bandidos, had already quietly established themselves in New Zealand's drug trade for years by that point. The Comancheros' arrival was louder, more deliberate, and it upended the balance of power in the underworld almost immediately. The clearest proof the Comancheros New Zealand chapter wasn't just posturing came less than 2 years after that first Instagram post, through the most unlikely person imaginable, a respectable Auckland lawyer. Tyson Daniels, the club's vice president, was living in the affluent suburb of Mellons Bay, a long way from the gold-chained bikie image the Comancheros had announced themselves with. Police alleged Daniels was funneling proceeds from a Mexican cartel-linked drug ring through the trust account of a lawyer named Andrew Simpson. Trust accounts exist to securely hold client funds, but Daniels and Simpson turned this legitimate structure into a laundering pipeline. They moved millions of dollars in cash, luxury cars and real estate, disguising drug profits as ordinary legal transactions. Notably, Daniels wasn't charged with drug offenses. His case was built entirely around laundering the money. Both men pleaded guilty and were sentenced side by side in early 2020. It was a striking courtroom image, a bikie boss and a lawyer convicted for exploiting one of the country's most regulated financial tools. The case mattered because it showed that barely 2 years after Naufahu's crew posed on gold Harleys, the Comancheros had matured past street-level dealing. They had built financial infrastructure directly into the legal system, exactly the kind of professionalized network that would later seamlessly merge with the Mongols and Mongrel Mob in the cross-gang supply chain exposed by Operation Texas. The clearest sign the old boundaries were dissolving, though, didn't come from a flashy Instagram post. It came out of Waikato, from inside New Zealand's own oldest bikie club. The Waikato Mongrel Mob Kingdom chapter had built an unusually public profile under its leader, Sonny Fatupaito, a member of over 30 years. His chapter made headlines for establishing an all-female division, standing guard outside a local mosque after the 2019 Christchurch attacks, and hosting community events, genuinely trying to reshape what a bikie chapter looked like in public. Fatupaito was also one of the first bikie leaders in the country to publicly recognize the Comanchero MC as a real threat, going so far as to float an alliance with the mob's own longtime rival, Black Power, just to present a united front against the new arrivals. Then, his own family undercut him. His brother and nephew, senior figures inside his own chapter, defected, patching over from the Mongrel Mob straight to the Comanchero MC, and used their standing to help launch a new Comanchero chapter in Waikato, inside what had been Mongrel Mob territory for generations. Patching over from one bikie club to a rival isn't a casual decision. It's a full renunciation of one loyalty for another, and doing it from inside your own brother's chapter is about as direct a statement as you can make that the old order is breaking down. A separate Comanchero rival, the Mongol Nation, would go on to set up its own New Zealand chapter the following year in the Bay of Plenty, and its arrival triggered actual street warfare. Cars torched, a barbershop firebombed in Tauranga, and semi-automatic weapons used in daylight confrontations that, by pure luck, didn't kill any bystanders. Whatever tension the Waikato defection created inside the Mongrel Mob itself, the practical result over the following years was unmistakable. Comanchero, Mongol, and Mongrel Mob members increasingly operating in the same territory, sometimes the same networks, instead of at war with each other. Now, that slow blending of motorcycle clubs isn't just a theory. Operation Texas is the exact moment New Zealand police caught this alliance completely red-handed. This whole thing kicked off in early 2025. The National Organized Crime Group started sniffing around the Waikato chapter of the Comanchero MC, dealing with what Detective Inspector Albie Alexander called a widespread drug problem. They busted one guy in July 2025, and instead of just locking him up and moving on, police realized they'd just pulled on a thread that connected a massive underground web. So, they spent a whole year sitting back, watching, and building a case. And right as the investigation was heating up, Customs intercepted 134 kilograms of pseudoephedrine at the border, the holy grail precursor chemical for cooking meth. Stopping that much juice before it even reached the Waikato completely choked out their production line. Instead of rushing in all at once and risking leaks, the police ran Operation Texas in quiet, coordinated phases between March and June 2026. They smashed through doors with 42 search warrants across Waikato and Auckland, arresting 24 people. They were slapped with heavy charges: importing meth, cooking precursors, laundering dirty cash, packing illegal guns, and literally running an organized crime syndicate. Cops found a literal arsenal of 2 shotguns, 4 rifles, and a sawn-off .22 rifle. They also grabbed 2.5 kilos of pure meth, half a kilo of cocaine, and over 100 grand in cash. Then the asset stripping teams moved in to take the rest. They froze $1.95 million worth of assets, including 2 houses, a bunch of high-end cars, and a motorcycle. The real takeaway from Operation Texas is that this wasn't just a Comanchero hustle. Look at who actually got dragged into the back of the paddy wagons. You had full-patched Comancheros, 4 of their nominees, and 6 associates. But sitting right next to them in the cells were patched members of the Mongols and the Mongrel Mob. Operation Texas proved that when millions of dollars are on the line, profit overrides pride. You have 2 highly sophisticated Australian 501 import clubs teaming up with New Zealand's oldest, most notorious homegrown powerhouse, operating not as rivals but as business partners.